Hi, everybody. I'm David Bruce, one of the commentators from the Pro Chess League, and today I'm joined by Greg Shahade, the commissioner of the Pro Chess League.
What's happening, David? Nice to be
Oh,
here.
I'm missing the Pro League already. How are you doing?
I'm missing it too.
Okay. Well, you've
All
already
right.
answered one of my final questions for you, but let's start at the beginning. I mean, obviously, you've spent a decade on the U.S. Chess League, which was kind of a predecessor to the Pro Chess League in some ways. But let's
hmm
say, like, the idea for the Pro Chess League itself as a distinct league, how long have you been working on that?
Honestly, not. I mean, I guess a year when we talked to chess.com and Danny and Eric. I forget exactly when it was, but
Mm-hmm.
it was probably like 8 to 9 months before the season.
Cool.
I've always wanted to spice up the U.S. Chess League, but it was tough because there was like some political issues involved that when you move to chess.com, like chess.com is great. They want to do exciting things. They want to do fast time controls. They want to have just fun, energetic kind of tournaments and events. And so once I started talking to them and realizing that they were totally on board with like some of my more crazy ideas, then I was like, all right, this is good. And it let my imagination run wild. And
Mm-hmm.
that's how we came up with the format.
Yeah. Well, you probably are known a little bit in the chess community for having some crazier ideas, which we've benefited from.
Probably.
All right, so with a full season behind us now, how happy are you with how it went?
I mean, it was pretty good.
Okay.
uh, Honestly, I
Yeah.
think this season, like from our standpoint, was kind of like a test run. Like we're
Mm-hmm.
just gonna try a bunch of rules and things and just see how it plays out. We're
Right.
not sure if this is exactly what we're gonna do more moving forward, but it's just kind of a test. And then somehow just all the top players started signing up one after another. I'm like, what's going on here?
Okay.
And so suddenly we're in this situation where we don't know how this is going to look. I mean, nothing like this has ever been done before,
Right.
and we have five of the top seven players in the world or something all competing.
Yeah.
We have 48 teams from around the world, and I think given those circumstances, it was great.
Mm-hmm.
I think next year is going to be better for sure
Okay.
because there's like a lot of things we could have improved on, but given the circumstance, I think it was really fantastic
So
and super excited for next year.
it sounds like you were surprised by some of the top players signing on.
I guess. I mean, I always have like optimism that like
Right.
deep in my heart, I maybe felt like they might,
Right.
but it's still it's still cool when they actually do.
Right. So when
You
you
know,
decided to run the league, you and Danny and Eric and whoever else was making decisions about like going for it, you didn't know for sure that the top players would participate and it wasn't necessary to run the league to get the top players.
it wasn't necessary. It's certainly helpful because they bring a lot of name recognition, and people just really like to watch guys like Magnus Carlsen, Wesley So, Nakamura play. So I mean, it's super helpful, but the goal of the league was not just to have a league around those players. I mean, that's the Speed Chess Championship, right?
Yeah.
You got the top players in the world playing. This is
Yeah.
different. This is involving them and many, many other top players and grandmasters and communities around the world. So
Yeah.
it
Now,
went,
now okay, so you're saying that you're happy with how it went. Let me ask you, what's the most important measurement for success for the league? Like it's a test run. At the end of this season, you're going to decide whether it went well or badly, whether you want to keep putting your time into it, and
yeah.
chess.com's going to decide whether to keep putting its money into it. What for you was like the main thing you look at to decide whether to keep going?
Well, I mean, I know this is like hard to compare, but if you compare the viewers from the U.S. Chess League and the Pro Chess League, it's probably like 100 times as many people watching.
Okay.
We would usually have, we would have shows that would go for 12 hours. Like they would start at 11 a.m. and they would end at like midnight. So that's actually more than 11 hours, or that's
Yeah.
like whatever, 13 hours. But there would be like an hour break in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
And there would literally be an average of over 1,000 to like 2,000 people watching at all times, like from beginning to end. I mean,
Yeah.
it'd slow down a little at late at night because I
Right.
guess everyone from Europe is asleep.
Yeah.
But I mean, we had consistent numbers every week, um, every hour. It just was cool.
Okay.
And in the finals and in the semifinals, we had like, we got up to 8,000 people watching for a few hours in a row. Usually it was like 5,000 for the semifinals.
Okay. So
So,
total number of people watching. That's like the number one metric for whether or not you're successful.
ah, and people had fun. It was like an exciting event with really good chess
Yeah.
and strong players. And so it just everything kind of went well. And especially for our first season when we didn't know what to expect, that we didn't like, there's a lot of things we're going to do even better next year.
Hmm.
But I thought it was pretty good this year. Yeah. And
Okay.
I just can't wait for next year.
Yeah, me neither. Um, so I imagine when you first come up with your ideas, as you said, you're kind of optimistic and you see the potential for success, often with trying something that nobody's tried before. So it's kind of uncharted territory, but you see that there's an opportunity. But you probably also see that there's some chance that it's not going to work out. Was there any particular moment that stands out in your memory as like a moment when you were like, oh, I think that this is going to be successful. I think this pro league is going to catch on.
Once teams started signing up, I mean, it happened pretty quickly. We put out an advertisement for teams to sign up. And, from the U.S. Chess League, I kind of invited all of those teams too. And I
Right.
got the feeling that at least half of them were going to be involved, at least half.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it ended up like 60 to 70% of those teams. And then suddenly teams from like Europe started signing up on our website. And so, like, once we start getting these signups from big cities like London, Amsterdam, Delhi, Norway was actually one of the first teams to sign up. Montreal. You could just tell that it's going to be hard to mess this up too much.
Okay. So the first question was just, are people going to come to play? And then once you saw that they were going to give it a try and come to play, then you figured it would work out.
I mean, you got all these great players playing each other, fun, fast time control, taking it serious, big prize money at the top. So
Mm-hmm.
I kind of expected it to go well once we started to get the teams. I mean, not perfectly. I figured something good's going to come out of this.
Who was the first top 10 player to to sign up?
I think, I think it was Fabiano.
Okay.
I can't remember the timeline exactly, and I think pretty shortly thereafter, Magnus committed with Norway.
Okay.
So that was a good start.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, those two signings, that. Is it fair to say that was an important moment for the league's success?
Um, yeah, sure.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean that was good. I mean, you didn't know they signed, but you didn't know how often they would play, so it was kind of unclear.
Mm-hmm. If
Uh,
they
you
were
know,
just lending star power, or if they were actually going to be there every week to watch.
Magnus didn't play for a few weeks. He
Yeah.
skipped the first 4 weeks. Then all of a sudden he was in.
Yeah.
He stayed in. He played every match after week
Yeah.
4, I think it was.
Yep. Well, you did start the league during the Tata Steel tournament, so Wesley also missed the first two matches.
He played the first
Eric
match.
Hansen.
I think he even played the second match. I think it was like week 3 and 4 that they had
Okay.
skipped.
Okay. Okay. And then here's a question about the top 10 players. I saw some discussion now and then about how like the headlines of the chess.com news stories or other things were always like Carlson something or other, Wesley So something or other. It was always these like top 10 players. And do you feel like any of the teams that didn't have a top 10 player, like the San Diego Surfers when they were 5-0, or the Stockholm Snowballs when they made it to the Final Four, do you feel like any of those teams didn't get the same kind of coverage that they deserved, or do you think there's any deserving to it, or I don't know? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I feel like I kept hearing about San Diego. I mean, I didn't like look at the headlines with a microscope to kind of. I wasn't the one writing the articles. I thought they were great.
Mm-hmm.
Like the whole point of these articles is to get people to read them and to get excited. And I think that in our first season, these guys are so recognizable. You mentioned Carlson, Wesley So. People are like, oh, wow, that's serious business. But so yeah, I would say that probably they got more attention. And not only that, they kept winning. You know, like
Yeah.
they made the Final Four. So
Right.
like any team that beats them is going to get a lot of attention too.
Right. So
But
if Wesley So and Carlson hadn't made it to the Final Four weekend, by that point you would have obviously been talking about whichever teams beat them.
of course, I mean they just happened to be there. So I mean, and I could have never. I didn't know how important it would be to have like a top player in the team. I thought
Mm-hmm.
like the balanced teams might do really well. And maybe it was just this year; it just happened that way.
Mm-hmm.
And in future years, some more balanced lineups will do very well. We'll
Yeah.
see. We'll see. But I think a main goal for the league is not just to, be focusing on these top players, but to find the way so that people out there know who just every team is and all the top players and all the teams.
Mm-hmm.
Even if they're like not top 100 players in the world, if they promote themselves well, they make fun videos and we do a good job of that too, I think that we can make them into stars also. But they have. I mean, for the most part, like it has to be a two-way thing. Like both parties have to be working on that. Because if you think of a few players, like Eric Hansen, for example,
Yeah.
like he is not a top 10 player in the world. He's a
Right.
very strong grandmaster, but he's not top 10. However,
Yeah.
he has extremely large following from all of the hard work he's put in online with the Chess Bras channel and stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that. That's what people have to do if they're not going to be top 10 and they want the like fans to want to watch their games as much as like Magnus Carlsen's. You have to put in that extra serious work. Other
Gotcha.
examples, John Bartholomew.
Mm-hmm.
Like we would get a lot of people coming to the show being like, "Hey, can we see John Bartholomew's game?" It's because he has
That's
this
true.
YouTube channel. He does a lot of work on it. Promotes, puts out lots of videos. Same for Ben Feingold.
Yeah.
So
That's true. I would be there like covering a game between Mamad Yarov and Wesley So or something in
yeah,
like, and it's like the number one team against the number three team or something, and people would be coming in asking to see John Bartholomew or Andrew Tang playing like speed chess against someone rated
exactly,
2200. So
exactly. So it's like important for players to promote themselves. That's just how it works.
hmm and
But
do you see that being player by player, or do you see there's like a role for the team in that to like promote its own organization and players together?
I would say both, and I would say next year we will do a better job of that too.
How so?
We'll talk about that later in the show.
Okay.
But it comes into other when you ask a few other questions that I'm sure you're asked, then it'll make sense.
Okay. Cool. Um, so moving along, you've probably watched about most or all of the 131 or so hours of Pro Chess League coverage.
That's a lot of
Um,
words.
have you really seen all of it?
Not like 100%. I mean, sometimes there would be so much going on, I'd have to mute it and just focus on like managerial duties or whatever.
hmm
But I definitely saw, I'd say more than half.
Okay.
That's for sure.
Was there anything in the coverage that stood out as like the most exciting chess moment of your life or anything like that?
It's honestly, I would say the St. Louis versus Montreal match was the most exciting chess match I've ever seen.
Yeah. Yeah, I also thought the
It,
semifinals would have been my pick.
it was crazy. And honestly, after it was over, the next day or 2 days later, I went to the Chess Bra channel and watched the recorded replay of their guy commentating on it.
Right.
And I watched like the last hour straight,
Yeah.
just kind of see how excited they were. And you can also see the chat. So like the people typing in chat is part of the replay.
Yeah.
And we're just so excited. And many people are like, this is the craziest, best chess match I've ever seen. If you just watch it, you will see many people saying that.
Yeah.
Watching, and they're all Montreal fans, so it was kind of sad to watch as they,
At
we
the
know what
end.
happened. I mean, yeah, they lost in like really heartbreaking, sad fashion.
Yeah.
But it was a really exciting, hard-fought match. It just went back and forth nonstop.
Cool. Who did the broadcast for them?
Oh my God, his name is like, forgive me, I'm gonna forget his name. It's like Mio Drag
Okay.
something. P begins with a P. I'm sorry that I forget, but
Okay.
I love his commentary. At one point, when Montreal keeps like they're on the edge of victory, right, and then something goes wrong, he just bangs the table, like bang it. Um, And when they lost, he did it a bunch of times. And, he showed a lot of emotion week in and week out, and that's why they get so many people watching. They get like 500 to 1,000 people watching sometimes.
That's great. I mean, that's as much as the main show. That's really incredible.
Yeah, they get I think like maybe sometimes like 50% of what
Yeah,
we have watching on the main show.
that's
It's just
great.
and
Now,
it's just one.
now speaking of that kind of passion and that partisanship,
Hmm.
obviously I was part of the commentary team. I don't want to ask you anything too awkward about how good or bad a job I did, but I'm curious if you intended for commentators to maintain like a kind of perfect objectivity, or if the commentators are allowed to get. I mean, it's kind of natural to get excited. Are they allowed to root for players or teams? And
Sure. I mean, like honestly, I thought it's fun when you and Jesse were commentating on the Norway versus Sweden match. He kind of picked one side, you picked the other, and you were kind
yeah,
of like rooting. You were like rooting for your own team,
yeah,
So I mean, stuff like that works well.
okay,
Um, I think you don't want it to be too obvious.
okay,
Like you don't want both commentators just be like, "Oh, I really hope Carlson loses."
mm-hmm.
Um, but it makes sense to be excited as he's losing because it's like a really special event that you don't see very often.
Right.
But you also get excited when he wins in a nice fashion.
Yeah.
So hope that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes some sense. I just feel like on the one hand, like what you're telling with this guy like banging his table and stuff, that
Oh,
sounds like great TV. Like you
it
like
was.
from some perspective, you might want your normal your official commentators to also bring that kind of passion. But then if they do, people from the opposing team will be like, "This broadcast
Yeah.
is so biased. Like I hate the guy who hates my team." Well, that's normal. I mean,
Yeah. I think how it should work is we have an official broadcast that has commentators that, maybe occasionally they like slightly root for somebody, but not like really over the top.
okay,
And then each team has their own channel where they can go nuts. They can get mad and angry when their team loses and excited and party when their team wins. That's the kind of the format we want to go with. And Montreal already has that giant channel with a huge number of viewers and followers. So,
okay. Well, good to know. Now that it's all over, I finally know what I should be doing.
mhm.
If I keep my job, I'll keep that in mind next year. Um,
Just fine there. Don't worry.
and now let's see. Um, in terms of coverage, I mean, one thing also that's interesting with the team's coverage, like you're talking about, is a lot of times I would think people would be afraid that the sort of like team's coverage is competing with the official coverage kind of thing. I've seen a lot of that in the past, and like I talked with Kavutsky when I interviewed him, and he said that he was favorably surprised that the league wanted him to do a broadcast at the same time from the San Jose perspective,
Hmm.
and that you guys supported it and like tweeted it and did what you could to bring him viewers as well. Is that a long-term strategy that's going to stay, that you want multiple broadcasts?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, without the support and excitement of the league, of the teams and their fan bases, that's if we don't have that, there's only so far we can go. We need to get people in the community excited, and to do that, we have to have teams have to have their own shows. And yeah, it will take away some temporary viewers away from like our official show, but in
Yeah,
the long run, it'll create long-term, serious, hardcore fans, and
right.
it's definitely good for us.
So rather than just talking up the numbers on your official show this week, you can say, look, this many people are watching the league in some channel or other, and they're carrying through to future weeks and so on.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, aside from the numbers we had, other channels would have, they would range. Some channels would just have 10 people. Some would have like 100. Some would have like 500 to 1,000, like the chess broads. I would go check them out when I could during the show, and it was just cool to see all these different communities getting involved.
So let's talk just like sort of like a highlight, low light for the year kind of thing.
Hmm.
Um, what was the biggest disappointment of the entire season for you?
I mean, it has to be the fact that people cheat still.
Okay.
We had to overturn a few results when we were sure that somebody cheated. Happened a few times, and it's just a shame because obviously this is something that could be really good for chess, and anyone who does cheat in a situation like that is attacking chess. They're attacking the future and the growth and the potential of the game that I'm sure they love. I'm sure they love chess.
Mm-hmm.
But what they're doing is bad. It's not good. Let's just say.
Yeah.
Um, and it's just disappointing. Let's just put it that way. I
Yeah.
mean,
It makes you sad.
I mean, I guess even though like we knew for sure it would happen, like there was no, it was not a big surprise that somebody was going to cheat.
Yeah.
However, next year we do plan to have more ambitious methods of making sure cheating does not occur,
Okay.
and
So
I'm pretty confident that we can do it.
okay. Cool. And then another question is, are there any big changes that you made during the course of the season? Like any sort of like on the fly changes that you hadn't anticipated before the season started?
You know the answer to this.
I
You
might.
gave you actually. We take suggestions from everyone, and you in particular gave one big suggestion that was a no-brainer. I don't know why we did it. Originally, the matches would start with board one playing against board one, and then it
Right.
would
Okay.
end with board one playing against board four.
Mm-hmm.
And from a drama standpoint, that's just bad. I mean, the top player should not play the lowest rated player in the final round. They should both play. The top two players should play each other. And so we switched the order around week four. I think we switched it up, and that made a big difference in terms of the quality and excitement of matches. So I would say
Okay.
that's like the main change we made during the
All right.
season.
Score one for me then, I guess. Thank you.
Yeah, that was a good suggestion.
Okay, I wasn't trying to set that up for myself. It just
Yes, you
happened.
were.
I was not. I was just making questions.
I mean, for all you know, there was other things. There probably is other things, but I think because I'm talking to you right now, it's just the first thing that pops into my
You see
head.
my face, and then there's just the association. You think of that.
Hmm.
But there was probably something more important. Okay.
Oh,
Um, what
that was
are...
pretty.
It was important. Okay, cool. What are the biggest things you would like to add or change for next season?
For next season. Well, not just next season. I think for the future.
Okay, for the future.
Um, so yeah, this is a tough question because like I said, it was kind of a test run. You look at what worked and what didn't. So first, number one thing for sure, and you would see a lot of complaints about this on the internet, like where is information on the league? How do they find information? Um,
Yeah.
because we didn't know how things were going to go. We didn't spend like 1,000 man hours creating a website and a million stats and everything. Like I said, this is kind of like an idea. We just kind of wanted to see how it went, and now we see it's great, and we are going to, as far as I know. I mean, I can't make one, but I'm pretty sure we're going to have a centralized website next year with all the information that any fan could possibly want on the league.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that will make a lot of people happy.
Yeah.
So that's number one.
Okay.
Number two, I think cheating is a big concern. I think once we hit the playoffs, I don't think anyone ever cheated in the playoffs. I think it was like 100% clean play.
Okay.
However,
That's good.
what we did notice is like once we hit like the final 16 or 8 teams, once we hit the playoffs, like half the players were kind of like on a webcam with one of our staff, like at all times during the match. And then once we hit the final 8, every player league wide was kind of on a Skype call with one of our staff members, and I think that was really important to fighting against cheating.
Right.
Because when you're sitting there and somebody's staring at you the whole time, and there's just so many options that are. If you want to cheat, there's so many options that get taken away from you.
Mm-hmm.
And we have other plans too, but I think this will really, really help. Compared to just somebody being alone in a room, nobody watching them, their imagination might run wild.
Yeah.
So I think that's one thing we're gonna do, and it's gonna help a lot.
Okay.
Third,
So are you
go
saying
on.
there's going to be webcams for all players during the regular season too, or...
That would be what I'd like. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm not saying that it will be a chess.com staff member in all these cases, but each team will like be responsible to have like a director, for example, like a tournament director, Skype in with everybody at the same time, and kind of like somebody trustworthy, like a TD or whatever.
Right.
And if we know that's happening, I think that will really alleviate a lot of concerns. And I'm
Yeah.
not saying it will stop cheating 100%, but I think it'll help a great deal.
Mm-hmm.
The third thing, this is the best and most exciting thing, in
Okay.
my opinion, but also kind of tricky. And we haven't worked out the details of it yet, but this year we had 48 teams. You would have 6 matches happening at once, 4 times per day, right?
Yeah.
And what would usually happen is there's just too many games happening at once. You cannot follow all of the games at the same
Yep.
time. Commentators can't do it. The fans can't do it. So, oh, the other problem is some of the teams in the league also weren't super competitive with the top teams, which led to some like weird imbalances in the schedule.
Okay.
So, what we're going to do is we're probably going to condense the league a little bit, meaning make it smaller this season. So like once the season begins, the league will be smaller. I don't know how many teams exactly, but we have some ideas we're floating around.
Okay.
Now, the plus side is we will have, just imagine we have like, let's say 8 teams in the division. Let's say each year, like the top 4 get to the playoffs. The bottom 2 in each division kind of are not out of the league, but they don't get to automatically play in the league next year. And then there will be like this giant qualification series. So like teams that want to get to be part of the Pro Chess League can qualify in like a fair democratic way, and that way any team can be part of the league.
Mm-hmm.
However, the league will be very elite, and you will have to earn your way into it.
Okay.
And I think,
So the bottom 2 teams in each division, for example, along
for
with
example,
anybody else who's interested, would be competing to get those 2 spots in the league for the next season.
I mean, this is just a general idea.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't know the exact details, but something along those lines is almost certainly going to occur, because there's no point to having so many matches that the fans, you can't even watch them. I mean, there's just too much action. And if you
Mm-hmm.
look at sports leagues around the world and the country, they usually have like 30 teams, 32 teams, something around that.
Mm-hmm.
that So I'd say probably somewhere around there. The,
Right.
the, the weird thing about it, though, is we had 48 teams this year, and I got to be honest, I love the work and energy, almost all those teams put into the league.
Right.
So,
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the leagues that you're probably comparing to are just like US leagues that have 30
yeah,
teams. And now you're like an international league. And one of your advantages maybe is that you can access every market in the world.
hmm
So from that perspective, it might make sense that you end up having more
more yeah,
teams
no,
than an average league.
it's true, but on the other hand, it sucks that you kind of have to ignore some teams in the commentary. Like
Yeah.
there was just too much, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the perfect solution, have a smaller league, but have this qualification series that happens every year that will also be really exciting.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
these teams are going to want to get in this league so bad, some
Yeah.
of these teams, and they're going to have to fight their way in. And when they do, they get a whole season of playing against the best players in the world. They
Right.
get to fight to stay in the league year after
Mm-hmm.
year. So I think that will really improve the quality of the league, and it'll just make it more exciting and get more teams involved. So
Cool.
that's what I'm really excited about. That the downside is teams that we really love are going to eventually, they're going to get demoted.
Kicked
I
out
guess they're
at
finished
some
in the
point.
end. They're going to have to try to qualify. They might not be able to.
Yeah.
It would be a shame, but that's how competition works.
Yeah. Okay. A lot. Some interesting changes. Now, big league or little league, either way, would you ever consider having 2 days of chess instead of 1
Sure.
as a way to also space out? That's one thing that occurred to me as a way to like space out the matches if there's so much.
I think if we had 2 days, though, it would be more to have more matches instead of more teams. That makes sense. So,
Mm-hmm.
like, occasionally a team, the league will have 2 matches in a week. And that way it'll give us more time to have, like, more regular season matches, for example.
Uh-huh. So it'd be the same teams maybe, but playing 2 games in a week instead of 1.
I don't know if this something's going to happen like right away. Maybe it'll happen one
Hmm.
or two times,
Interesting.
but it's possible.
Hmm.
It's definitely possible.
Cool. All right. Do you have any other plans for the off season? Are you going to run any qualifying for next season?
I mean, like
Maybe already
the
this
league
year?
just the league just ended about a week ago,
Yeah.
but I do expect that there will be qualification at some point for next season. I
Okay.
don't know how it's going to work, but we're going to have to do it because tons of teams are interested from all over the world in joining that we're not part of the league this year.
Okay.
Um, so we're going to have it's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
It's just the tough thing will be when the teams that we love that have been part of the league don't qualify. But that's fine, you know. They can try again next year. Um, and I think that level of healthy competition makes it more exciting. It's just I get really attached to these teams. I love them all.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
so it's kind of it'll be bittersweet when teams get kind of demoted.
Yeah. I was gonna
I didn't think
ask
it's
you.
that, so.
I was gonna ask you if there were any plans to like recruit teams from like chess superpowers like Russia or China that were underrepresented, but it sounds like if you've got so much interest coming in, like there's no reason you would
Yeah, I mean we do have a lot of interest.
do
We
any
have a
recruiting.
we have a page that's really hard to find where you can like sign up for a team, and so teams are still doing that. I don't even know how to find it right now. It's on there somewhere on the internet
Right.
because we're not really advertising it, but I get
Yeah.
like applications.
Wow. Okay, so
So
they're applying 9 months in advance for a season that hasn't yet been
basically,
announced on a web page that can't be found. So they're really
yeah,
interested.
that's what I'm saying. So it's like the league just has to we have to have a system. We have to have a certain number of teams, and we have to have a system for qualification. But I think that's going to make the league so exciting because one problem you have now is that when teams are not able to make the playoffs anymore, you're not sure they're going to try that hard. But if you have this situation where if you come in seventh or eighth, there's this big penalty, then everyone's going to be trying and fighting their hearts out every week, even if they're not going to make the playoffs. Like you're going to see a last week matchup of teams where it's going to be super, super, super important.
Right.
Right? They're not making the playoffs. This is just to be part of the league the next year.
Right. It's not a
That's
playoff match, it's an elimination match.
Yeah, and think about how if you love this league and you're playing the seventh place team and you're like in sixth and seventh or whatever.
Yeah.
Imagine that's the cutoff. That'll be a huge match.
Sounds like a lot of pressure.
Yeah, I guess so. So I think that'll just add another exciting wrinkle to the league.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Um, Now, I was going to turn to maybe asking you a few questions about how the league has been for you personally, as
Okay.
your job and your role. I mean, you've been in the chat room a lot, but this is the first interview I've seen you do this year. I haven't seen you on air yet.
Yeah, not on chess.com, but I did like a podcast with Ben Johnson
Okay,
about the league.
cool. I should have prepared by listening to that,
Yeah,
but did not.
hopefully.
So I'll repeat his questions. I think I saw you once saying in the chat that this was like the hardest you'd ever worked. Is that a correct recollection, or is that an accurate
Yes, it
statement?
is. One thing that's great about chess.com is they have like an amazing staff. So I did not know going into it how many different people who are super competent and super skilled were going to be helping with this.
Mm-hmm.
But it was still a huge amount of work.
Okay.
But once I think we all kind of figured out how to do it, it became a lot less. Like the first 3 weeks of the season were just like crazy. And the 2 weeks before it, it was just like nonstop, like panicking and scrambling. But the last month and a half was a lot more chill.
Okay. So more work than you expected, even though you had more help than you expected, but you guys figured it out by the end of the season.
Yeah, and I think in the future we now have some systems. It will never. I don't think it will ever be as brutal as it was those first 2 weeks, first 2 or 3 weeks.
Okay. Did you have to give up other things to keep up with all the league work? Like, did this take a toll
It
on your
did. I mean,
life?
I have this thing where it's hard for me to do like many things at the same time very seriously. So like, I have a YouTube channel where I play Blitz. I literally played almost no games for 3 months, which obviously I had time to play, but I was just like my brain was elsewhere.
Yeah.
writing a chess book, and I kind of finished it like about the beginning of the league. But since then, I barely looked at it. I barely studied chess. It's something.
Yeah.
It just does something. Like your mind gets compartmentalized. Is that a word?
That is.
And I just had trouble. I just had trouble putting a lot of energy into anything other than the Pro Chess League.
Yeah. So I think I know the answer to this question, but I'll ask anyway. Was that all worthwhile? Was that like, are you happy with how you used your energy those 3 months?
Yeah, because I mean, this is a big thing. Yes, of course.
Cool.
Getting all the top players in the world to believe in this concept was, pretty cool.
Great. And then my final question is, are you happy or sad to now be in the off season?
I'm actually happy because now I'm just thinking about next year, and I have so many ideas that I want to try to implement. And so I like the idea process, or like the idea stage. So
Right.
like now I just think of different ways to make the next season as good as possible.
That makes sense. Cool.
I'm kind of excited, but it's a long off season. I mean, it's long.
Yeah. I'm sure people are looking forward to these new ideas.
I'm sure they will be. And I can't wait to talk to all the teams from this year and kind of share those ideas with them. Maybe some of them watching this video and they'll know ahead of time. But
right.
It's going to be exciting.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thanks so much for your time, Greg. And also for all your work on the league. As a fan of the league, I certainly enjoyed getting to watch all that chess every week.
You picked St. Louis to win it all, didn't you?
I did.
How'd you know?
Well, in my mind, they had two sort of MVP-like candidates on their roster, because I had this sort of like approach to the league from back when I was involved in the USCL. It was always very important to have somebody like underrated on board 4 to allow you to play more higher rated people on the top boards. So I often like look at this not just from the perspective of who's the best player on the team, but who's like the most underrated. So I'm looking for performance differentials instead of just performance ratings. So from the very first week, I was like checking like, oh, Christopher Yu did really well. Oh, Rosenthal did well, and I had a list of like the 5 or 6 top performing fourth boards from the first week.
Yeah.
And then I was watching after week 2, after week 3, who is going to be able to score 2 points out of 4 again, or are they just going to go 0-4, 0-4 and they had one good day? And over the course of the season, Rosenthal continued to perform. So I'm like looking at St. Louis. They've got the best performer on board 1 and the best performer on board 4, letting them play like 3 GMs. That's how I picked.
Oh, understood. I mean, Rosenthal is a real underrated player at rapid. Like, he's just really good at rapid and blitz play.
Yeah.
For his rating. So definitely a good decision by St. Louis to use him so often.
Yeah.
He definitely made a big difference. I think in each of their matches, once he beat somebody, that was like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
whenever he registered his upside, it would be like, okay, now what's that team going to do to catch back up?
Exactly.
And then he would also beat their board 4 in the last round. And it's like, well, there you go.
Indeed.
Who did you pick to win the league?
Well,
did you fill out a bracket?
Secretly, I did. Right?
Secretly, you filled out a bracket?
Yeah.
Secretly, were you right or wrong?
I can't say.
Okay. Was your bracket decent or terrible?
That was pretty decent.
You're pretty good at predicting the league?
I mean, it was tough. I definitely didn't I didn't get one of the top brackets, but it was like a solid performance, I would say.
Okay.
I mean, it was just like a random. I wasn't entering for anything. I was just kind of like messing around.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine a lot of the people who put in brackets, it wasn't because they were trying to win a prize, but just because it's interesting to see.
I guess so.
How well you can predict.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks again. And to everybody out there, if you've got any questions or comments for Greg, I'm sure he'd love to see them in the comment section, hear your ideas for next year, or, answer other questions you have in future interviews. That's all.
Thanks for talking.